So the Boston Celtics have been red hot since the All-Star break and are standing at the 4th seed in the East with a record of 47-30. They've made a huge turnaround this season as they started the season pretty horrible. At one point, they were out of the playoff race at the beginning of the season, but they've climbed up all the way to the 4th seed, and they're being led by Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown, who both are the team's future. And today we're going to be talking about if they can make it to the finals this year and how they're going to make it there. So what's up? I'm JDC. If you like the video, drop a like down below, subscribe to the channel. Got a Celtics video here, so if you're a Celtics fan and you like this content, drop a like, subscribe to the channel. So to start things off, we have Jason Tatum. He's averaging around 27 points per game, 8 rebounds and 4 assists. Very solid numbers as a small forward and should be considered a top candidate for the MVP award. You know, we got Giannis, we got Joel Embiid, we got DeMar DeRozan, we got all these guys in the top 5 for the MVP award. But Jason Tatum, he should be a throw-in as he's leading the Celtics team. 27, 8, and 4, pretty great stats, comparing it to, Joel Embiid or LeBron or even Giannis. I mean, his numbers aren't too far off, man. He's able to get it done recently, as at the beginning of the season, he was pretty much struggling to get things done on offense, but looking at it right now, I mean, he looks like his offense is pretty much smooth, getting into the rhythm of things, and overall, I mean, he's gonna get it done on both ends of the floor, as he's a pretty great defender too. So Tatum's ability to stretch the floor also gives the team more time to breathe, as Tatum is shooting 35% from the 3. Being able to stretch the floor gives the offense more time to breathe, gives it a little bit more space, and with Tatum being also able to run the ISO ball, it gives the Celtics more time to breathe and just opens up the offense, gets shooters open. And with Jason Tatum being able to shoot, I mean, with him alongside Jalen Brown, who we'll be talking about later, it's a great offense overall, and his big body frame allows him to take smaller guards off the dribble. I've seen a lot of plays where Jason Tatum has the ball on smaller guards or even smaller forwards, and he can just take them off the dribble easily and just drive past them. That's one of my favorite parts about Jason Tatum. He's actually, I wouldn't say one of my favorite players to watch right now, but one of my favorite forwards right now. So Tatum should be considered a top small forward in today's league, and the craziest part about this is that he's only 24 years old, which gives him a ton of upside. I didn't even think he was this young. Being 24 years old is still fairly young comparing to, Jalen Brown. He's only 25 years old. So Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown, they're both pretty young. And the upside here is pretty much amazing. Looking at it right now, I mean, they have a lot of time to grow. They have a huge window for a championship. If they don't get it done this year, in the next few years, they can. They can just keep building around Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown. I remember at the start of the season when they were horrible, people were questioning if Jalen Brown and Jason Tatum could work together, and looking at it right now, they absolutely can. So most of the offense will go through Jason Tatum, but also, Jalen Brown, who has been a surprising player for this team, man. Brown is averaging around 23 points per game, 6 rebounds and 3 assists. Brown's been a player who's gone under the radar, due to the sloppy start at the season. And in my opinion, I think he's going to be a heavily underrated player in the future. And as of right now, I think he is still pretty much underrated. He's one of the best two-way players in the league. We got Kawhi Leonard, we got Paul George, but we also got Jalen Brown, who has been pretty amazing, 3-and-D, also someone that can run the ball. Like I said, he's also one of the best two-way players. He has the ability to go off from the field at any moment, being able to shoot the 3. If you look at his overall stats from the field, I mean, he's shooting pretty much great from the field, averaging around 35% from the 3 and 47% from the field. Great overall shooting splits right there. Jalen Brown, I think he's one of the more underrated shooting guards in the league, and with players such as Donovan Mitchell and Devin Booker, who have been both performing on their respective teams, he's been going under the radar. James Harden also, if you want to count him as a shooting guard still, Kyrie Irving. Jalen Brown, he should be considered a top 5 shooting guard right now even. I'm not going to debate who's better, Donovan Mitchell, Devin Booker, or Jalen Brown. It's up to you guys who you think is better, but overall, I mean, Jalen Brown is definitely a top shooting guard in this league and has a ton of upside being only 25 years old. So the Celtics, they also have some great supporting pieces in Robert Williams, who is unfortunately injured. He has been absolutely amazing for this team, giving them basically everything that they needed at the center/power forward position. If you look at his overall stats, 10 points per game, 10 rebounds, and 2 assists. He's also throwing in 2 blocks per game, 0.9 steals, so almost a steal a game too. So losing Robert Williams is definitely a huge hit to this team. They do need his blocking ability, but also his ability to grab rebounds and just overall play his role. They do have Al Horford and Daniel Tice, but Daniel Tice isn't going to get it done. Coming from a Rockets fan, he is very inconsistent, and Al Horford, as good as he is, he's 35 years old, so his high level of play is going to go down pretty soon. So, losing Robert Williams in the playoffs is definitely a huge blow to them. Hopefully he does come back. before, the first round. I'm not too sure even if he even is going to come back. But if they do get him back at some time in the playoffs, then it would be a huge plus to their team. So looking at their other pieces, they do have Al Horford, who provides some great three-point shooting while also giving them some interior defense. Over the season, actually, Al Horford has been pretty amazing for this team. Come back to the Celtics last year, playing for the Thunder. He's actually averaging around 10 points per game, 7 rebounds, and 3 assists on around 45% from the field, and 32% from 3, while also averaging 1 block per game. So the defense here from the front court of Robert Williams and Al Horford is pretty amazing right here. For Robert Williams, he isn't really known to be a three-point shooter or even scoring at all. So Al Horford pretty much covers for that, but then, Robert Williams covers for the rebounds and the blocking. So they also have Peyton Pritchard, who also has been pretty great in the last few games. If you look at his last 10 games, he's actually averaging around 10 points per game, 3 rebounds, and 2 assists on 53% from the field and 51% from the 3. So Pritchard, I think moving forward, he's going to be more of a bench player, a six-man kind of player. Kind of like, I want to say TJ McConnell, where he's going to be more of a facilitator, but I think he's going to be a good player that's going to give them some buckets off the bench and maybe even some assists. So hopefully they can keep Peyton Pritchard for the future. He's only 24 years old, 6'1", 195 pounds, so pretty undersized right there, kind of like Fred VanVleet, but a little bit less skilled. But overall, Peyton Pritchard should be viewed as a pretty important piece off this bench if they do need a six-man, because, they did have Dennis Schroeder at the start of the season, but then they traded him for Daniel Tice, and now they don't really have a backup point guard position. Marcus Smart obviously running the primary point guard position, so Peyton Pritchard should be the sixth man off the bench. So, Marcus Smart's another player who has been pretty great for this team, giving them some good 3-and-D plays while also being able to distribute the ball. He's averaging around 12 points per game, 4 rebounds, and 6 assists. Great stats overall. He's averaging 41% from the field and 32% from 3, while also averaging 1.7 steals per game. So pretty great defense from Marcus Smart. He's one of the best on-ball defenders on this team, and overall in the league too, one of the best on-ball defenders. The defense on this team is pretty amazing. If you look at it right now, they got Jalen Brown, who is a great defender overall, Marcus Smart, who's one of the best on-ball defenders, Jason Tatum, who's a pretty great defender, Robert Williams, and Al Horford. That's probably one of the best defensive starting fives I've seen in this league. And overall, if they can keep this team together moving forward, I think they're going to be great. Al Horford getting up there in age is going to be a little bit alarming, but if they do find a replacement for him, kind of like Miles Turner, who is a great name they should go for in the offseason, I think they could be a great team moving forward. So, all right, and finally we have Derek White, who was a recent addition on the trade deadline. Now, for Derek White, I actually haven't heard too much about him since coming to the Celtics because he has been going under the radar. If you look at his season stats with the Celtics, he's averaging around 10 points per game, 4 assists, and 3 rebounds. A huge dip in points per game, comparing it to San Antonio, he was averaging around 14 points per game. For assists, he took a huge dip. He did average around 5 assists with the Spurs, and with the Celtics, he's averaging around 4. So I'm not too sure what's happening with Derek White. His shooting splits also have taken a huge dip from the field, 38% from the field on the Celtics compared to the Spurs, where he averaged around 43%. And from the 3, he's actually averaging around 26% from the 3 compared to San Antonio, where he shot around 31%. So Derek White, he's taking a huge dip, and I'm not too sure what's happening here. If he's coming off the bench, now I pretty much understand that because he's going to be playing behind Jalen Brown and Marcus Smart because he is a shooting guard / point guard. So I can understand that. But I think the Celtics were expecting that Spurs Derek White, where he can provide some good shooting off the bench, some good buckets off the bench. And he isn't really doing that right now. So hopefully he does get out of this slump. I think he could, because I think he's one of the more underrated players in this league too. The Celtics, they have a lot of underrated players. Robert Williams, Jalen Brown, and Derek White, they're all pretty much underrated. But Derek White, if he keeps up this low level of play, I'm not too sure what his future is with the Celtics moving forward because he is 27 years old. So they can keep him. I'm not too sure what they're going to be keeping him for. Maybe a trade piece in the future. But overall, if they do decide to keep him, it's most likely going to be off the bench. And the Celtics roster, it's actually built very well. There's a good mix of both vets and youth while also having a great mix of offense and defense. The hugest challenge for this team is going to be if they can stay healthy, with Robert Williams, and if they can keep up this high level of play, because at the start of the season, a huge dip in basically everyone's numbers. Jalen Brown and Jason Tatum were both pretty much horrible, and they really had no direction for this team at the start of the season. But when they started playing together as a team, building that chemistry, then they're going to be fine. Because looking at it right now, I think they're one of the favorites in the East to come out. They also have the Bucks, the Heat, the Sixers in the East to beat. So hopefully they can beat those teams in the East, and hopefully they can just get it done. So now the question that arises from this is that, are they able to go far into the playoffs? So if you look at it right now and their competition right now, if they finish as the 4th seed, they will play against the Bulls in the first round, which will be a pretty great matchup. They got DeMar and Zach LaVine, both of their best players, but they also have some great supporting pieces in Lonzo and Vucevic. So that's a pretty deadly team right there. And looking at the matchup right now, I mean, Jason Tatum would be on DeMar DeRozan, Jalen Brown would be on Zach LaVine, so pretty great defense right there already. Marcus Smart and Alonzo Ball would be already a great matchup, and then Horford on Vucevic because Robert Williams is injured. So this matchup could end in a win, but nothing is guaranteed in this league. I just think that this matchup would probably go to 7 games in favor of the Celtics. I just think that they have a better roster, and off the bench, the Bulls, they have Alex Caruso, and that's pretty much it. And, I guess I would assume too, but he is a rookie. So looking at it right now, I mean, the Celtics bench, they also have some pretty great pieces, like I said, with Derek White, with Peyton Pritchard. They got all these guys. But I think this series goes to 7 games, and I think it favors in the Celtics' way because I just think that they are a better team with their defense and their high level of offense. And looking at it right now, this, as great as the Bulls are, they are, I think it was, what's the stat line? 0-16 against above 500 teams, which is pretty amazing. So if we're comparing the Celtics to teams like the Sixers, the Bucks, the Heat, or even the Raptors, I think they're able to go off against them very well. I think the matchups are going to be pretty great. Looking at the Sixers, I mean, it's going to be a little bit difficult with Joel Embiid, but, James Harden versus Jalen Brown would be a pretty great matchup. The Bucks, obviously, Jason Tatum versus Giannis is going to be... Overall, I see the Celtics as a contender in the East and a team to watch out for when the playoffs roll around. I think it's just a matter of if they can keep up this high level of play in the playoffs and overall just play as a team overall. So that's the end of the video. I'm JDC, and out. Peace.